Well, g'day again. Okay. Now, if you'd watched the previous video, I explained where the camber was, the wheels were towing in, and I made an assumption that the swing arm Z-bars were bent, and I'm now at the point where I'm not 100% certain that that was a correct assumption. But anyway, I'll explain that in a minute. Okay, so I'll explain it now, actually. What I found, I knew that at least, one or two of the bearings were bad because I could hear them grinding. I found a really crook inner one on this side. So I went in and went into my local bearing shop, and I got two new inner bearings. And then I fitted up the bar and the jig. I showed the jig before, but I'll show it a bit more. This is a jig. It's bolted to these two shafts. But yeah, when I got that in, I discovered there was movement in one of the outer bearings. So I grabbed the best of the old inner bearings, which are the same size, and put that on the outer. And this is essential in lining up. You can't have any movement whatsoever. That shaft has to be tight within the bearings with no movement, or you won't get it accurate. Now I had to sleeve up two sleeves actually. And one which was a bit of pipe that I split so it would wedge into the bearing, and then the shaft was still a bit loose in it. So I've cut up a steel paint can and used that as a second sleeve, and that's got tight. And yeah, so it's all bolted up. I cut the insides first, because I wouldn't be able to get in there with the shaft in place. So I cut the inner. I've cut right up. The only thing I've left is just this seam on the top, and that's to hold it so it doesn't move in or out, or back or whatever, just to hold it in place enough so that it can move with the shafts and line up properly. So yeah, I'm going to clean up around the cut now so I can weld it, and I'll be turning my welder up and making sure I get good penetration, and other than if I get a few big dags, I'm not going to grind the weld either. I'm just going to leave it there for strength. I don't really care what it looks like. It doesn't concern me. Strength is what does concern me. And I've also moved the adjustment, the forward and back adjustment, to the center on both sides. And because that's the other thing that was out. One of these, as you can see from where it's chewed the paint off, I had to move it almost fully forward to bring it in line with the front wheel. So this one was back. The wheel was towing out at the front a lot. So yeah, I guess it must have actually been bent. As I said, I'm sort of starting to question whether the camber issue was more to do with the worn bearings, whether I needed to do this at all. But yeah, as I said, the towing was wrong anyway, so yeah, it had to have been bent in some way. And like I've straightened it up now, you can actually feel a little bit of difference in it. It's only, geez, not even half a mil. there is a slight difference there. So, yeah, it has moved. But, yeah, so, I didn't get the proper Volkswagen bearings, mainly because I didn't want to wait a week or more for them to arrive. And the cost. I was going to put proper Volkswagen ones on the outside. The reason being that the outer one, the center collar, isn't fixed. It can move in and out. And that is so that it can clamp up tight against the center collar. This is the inner collar that goes between the bearings. And on the old swing arm, that nut on the outside gets done up to like 150 pound or something. So it's probably the same with this model, but I should actually check rather than just assume and do it up to that amount. But anyway, the point I'm getting to is I'm now going to go in and buy another set. They're the exact same size, the inner and the outer. And the inner ones that I bought only cost me $11 each. And they're also a seal bearing, which is great because I don't have to bother greasing them up or anything. And you don't ever get any dirt in there. Yeah, I'll put the oil or grease seal back in behind it anyway, on both sides, just as a secondary measure to keep the dirt out. But yeah, what I'm getting to now is that with the bearing with the fixed inner, I've got to make sure that it can clamp up tight against this inner sleeve without putting a strain on the bearing. So if it doesn't actually clamp up tight, well, then I'll have to put a shim in there or something. And so anyway, we'll get to that when we get to that. So I don't know. A lot more I can say about that. Except that if anybody was waiting on this, I'm sorry it wasn't Wednesday like I mentioned in the other video, but got grease on my hands now. I'm going to find a rag. But yeah, that's the way things go around here. You get delayed, you get things you've got to attend to. Yeah, every day plans of things change. Yeah, the other thing, well, which I should mention, I've interrupted me train of thought now, but what I was going to say, but I've moved, instead of having the body jacked up, I've moved the stand under the suspension itself, so the car's actually sitting on its suspension, because that's it's more even and more true to where it's going to be riding. So obviously I didn't put it back here because that would push it up, but yeah, it's not quite at this ride height. Obviously when you get your wheels back on, you've got more leverage, and so it will push up a little bit more, but it's fairly close to it, fairly close to where it rides at. So yeah, so I figured that was pretty important. And as far as getting it even and whatever, so yeah. The other thing that's sort of hampered things down here is I haven't done much during the day. And reason being, so here in Tasmania, we seem to just go straight from winter into summer. And when you're used to Yeah, 10 to 15 degrees most days. Yeah. 30 plus just feels extremely hot, I mean, yeah, they reckon high UVs and high humidity, I suppose that adds to it. But I think the biggest issue is that you'll go from 15 degrees to 30 degrees in the space of a week, and it just comes on so quickly, and you only get this 30 degrees for a month or so, and then it drops back into the 20s and then down to the 10s. So yeah, it's like you don't get a spring, you just go from winter to summer, and it sort of comes on as a shock, and it's really hard to bear. But as I said, like when I used to live in Sydney, 30 was just a nice day. But yeah, down here, because you're not used to it, it's really hard to cope with. And you certainly, I suppose in the shed, even though I've got it all insulated, it'll, if it's 30 degrees outside, it'll be 35 in here. So yeah, so that's slowed down the progress as well. Anyway, I'll stop rambling on now. So thanks for watching, and hit the like, please. Okay, bye.